both the banding and the decking. Now, for the front banding, if I were going to put a cording on it, at this point, I would go ahead and pin my cording on the top of it, okay? And then I would take it to the machine and I would sew it. Once I had it sewed, I could then bring it back here and lay it right down on top of here with the seam allowance under and the cording on the top, right? And just lay it right down and pin that in place, okay? I'm not going to do cording on this one, I'll just do a top stitch. So I flip it this way, and I just simply go along here. Now, since this is the banding on the front, I'm going to be a little more fussy about my 1/2 inch, you know, about turning it under 1/2 to 5/8 inch. Get a better pair of scissors going here too. These are just not, I don't like silk for some reason. But it's very quick and easy to actually just take your iron and just kind of eyeball it. Thank you. Just kind of eyeball it and go along. Is this hot? It's not hot. Because it's off. That would help.
Well, I thought it was getting warm.
It didn't get very warm. It just barely got warm. Okay. Anchor it. Once again, you want to anchor it so you're not sliding all over. It does help to anchor. And so just to kind of go along and turn your seam allowance. You can do this without measuring it, even if you're doing the banding on top. It's not hard to do, you just trust your eyes. Because in the overall scheme of things, the client's not going to see if it's a millimeter off here or there. Okay?
Do you do yours this way? You do my banding?
You probably do fix. See, you could do fix at this point.
I have, but I also, when I did that one, where I used the cording at the top and the bottom, I did do it like this and stitch in the ditch.
Yeah.
This is great for me. This is great for me because this is going to save me a ton of time.
Okay, so then I just pin it in place, nice and neat, whether it's got cording or whether it's just going to be top stitched. I pin the banding in place here, and it's going to fit because it was cut to the same shape, so that doesn't change, which makes it
Could
nice.
you, if you want to, stitch it on there from that side?
I'm not going to do. No, I tried that. That's way too hard because you're going against.
Yeah.
It's too hard. I just top stitch it.
Okay.
You could do fix it. Do fixing it would be a nice finish on here. So if you wanted to, you could do fix it. Now, obviously, I didn't do that very pretty, but you'll forgive me, I'm sure. All right, I'm doing it in a hurry. All right, so now I've set my front banding in place. And I've pinned it as often as I think I need to pin it. Now I need to get the decking on my lining, right? So I'm going to pull this guy. He goes on the lining, God bless you,
Thank you.
this way. So I need to also give him a bit of a which side was I on? Oh, is that the right side? And I go ahead and I press his 1/2 inch seam allowance in all the way across. Much neater than this. Okay. Put him down here. Now here's where I was saying yesterday or the day before, if you have to pin something and you've got layers underneath it that are in the way, get your metal ruler out and slide it under here so that you don't pin through all the layers. Excuse me, I don't want to hit you with it. So I just want to pin this to the lining. I'm going to just simply slide a ruler or a plastic ruler or one of those underneath here so that I'm only catching the lining and not anything else underneath. You see what I'm doing? I'm doing everything at the table, and I'm doing it in such a way that I'm not distorting. I'm keeping the original, you know, if I were to take this now and the way I used to, and take it to the machine and sew it on, then bring it back, and then try to mate it up with the other layers, they'll start to get distorted. They always do, don't they? Whereas I'm keeping everything perfectly flat and level with each other so that we don't get that distortion going on. Okay? And then I can just bring this back down. Oh, see, I still managed to. Bring that back down. Hopefully this hadn't shifted. And see, it rolls right back in, so everything is perfectly aligned again, my bottom seam. Now, if I had cording to put in here, I would simply fold it back a little bit, and I would go along and I'd pin my cording, stab pin cording in here. Okay? As I'm going along now and getting ready and putting the cording in and getting the layers together, I'm going to start stab pinning the layers together so that they don't shift. Okay? So that now I've stab pinned all the way across. Where did I lose my? Oh, I got it out for you guys. And I'm either going to staple, depending on how thick it is, or I'll just go ahead and set my pins all the way along here. So I think I'll just set the pins. Okay. Did you see what I'm doing? Can you see how this might be a little easier, a little faster?
Yes.
Okay. All right. When I go to the machine now, here's what I do. I sew the whole bottom. So I'm going to sew the whole bottom. I throw this sample away anyways. I always have to start. This is my stitch line. Okay? So I sew this whole bottom all the way across. One time I'm sewing the bottom. That's it. There's no need to go back. No need to put cording in and come back and do, mate it later. You're just doing it all in one step. You can even use your cording foot and then it's all done. While I'm at the machine, I don't even get up. While I'm at the machine, then I open it up here, and now I go back and I do my top stitching here, and I top stitch this whole line in. And then I go back and I top stitch this banding on, all in one step. Then I come back, and clean this up, and I stitch the side seams. Now I can take it to the table. When I turn it and press it, it's done. One time to the table, to the machine. Like that?
Love it.
Okay. Sometimes you do have to do a little bit of juggling of fabrics depending on whether or not you can see your face fabric through the lining. Sometimes you have to put the lining on the bottom layer, cut the initial shape, and then pull it out and put it on top. I mean, that does happen, but you don't go far with it. You're not going anywhere with it. It's just right here and you're putting it out on top. And this works for no matter how long you get. If you are doing a panel or a valance that is longer than the table, you're going to follow the same rules as you did with the panels. When you get down to the end of the table, before you go shifting, you're going to run a line of pins here to keep all the layers together so that you can pick it up and shift it all the way down the other end of the table and then start smoothing out the next set of layers. Okay?
All right, I got
Did that answer your question about seams? So the seams are just simply built in.
Yeah, yeah.
I simply cut it big enough and seamed it in the same places and aligned them.
So, but I think what I'm wanting to know is, like, say you've got it 100 inches long. So your pieces, you sew your strips together, and then you come back and you cut it out. The one that I had, though, it was like here and here and there and back down.
Okay, you got in
That
a little
was-
bit more creativity.
Yeah.
Something like that you get into, what I would do is I would still try to stay with this kind of idea, but I would take the strips of lining of contrast, I would cut long strips, and I guess it would depend on whether or not your straight of grain showed. But you could, run a strip for as long as you can, and then once it's not big enough or whatever, you could take another strip and run it this way, but you'd have to like hand form a seam there that, you know what I mean? Strips.